Hey guys. Tonight, we're stepping into the weary sandals of the Barber's second brother, trudging down dark alleys lit only by flickering lanterns, with the sour stench of rotting dates and donkey dung thick in the summer air. You're hunched low, your robe torn, the empty socket of your lost eye hidden behind a ragged cloth. Every step crunches over grit and broken pottery shards. You probably won't survive this, but at least you'll gain a deeper appreciation for your warm bed and unbroken teeth. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you listening from tonight? And what time is it over there? Drop it in the comments below. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stagger down the crowded street, feeling each pebble bite into your cracked heels. The city pulses with voices, merchants hawking spices from behind stacked burlap sacks, goats bleating as they're dragged through the dust, children shrieking with delight as they chase each other barefoot past open market stalls. But for you, none of this matters. You grip the rim of your begging bowl, its clay surface warm from the noon sun. Occasionally, a passerby tosses in a coin. More often, they drop leftover crusts, stale bread hardened like burnt pottery, or date seeds to gnaw when your belly clenches too hard. Historians still argue whether blind beggars in medieval Baghdad formed informal guilds for mutual protection, or simply clung to familiar corners and prayed not to be moved along by guards with knotted whips. Either way, today, you're alone under the archway by the city well, leaning against sandstone blocks that radiate stored heat even at dawn. A donkey snorts beside you, its owner watering it before a long trek south. The cool splash of water against stone makes you swallow dryly, imagining the relief of a single gulp. A mainstream fact drifts through your weary mind. In 10th century Islamic cities, public fountains and water vendors were often funded by waqf, charitable endowments, ensuring no citizen ever went entirely without drinking water. Unfortunately, you're not a citizen anymore, at least not in the eyes of those who matter. Your eye was lost in a scuffle years ago, when you attempted to protect your meager satchel from a thug. He'd swung his stick so fast you only heard it whistle before pain erupted like lightning across your skull. That memory and your shame press on your chest as you listen to a passing scholar reciting verses from Al-Mutanabi, his clear voice echoing under the stone arches. The horse, the night, and the desert all know me. You smile wryly at the irony. The desert knows you too, though it remembers you as a stumbling figure, one eye sealed in crusted blood. Searching for the road home, a fringe tidbit flickers into your weary mind. Something an old man once told you, that some medieval beggars used powdered pigeon droppings mixed with vinegar to bleach their bandages, hoping to look clean enough to win a coin. You never bothered with such refinements. Dirt, after all, is your constant companion. It makes the air taste of earth, grit, and your own sweat. You shift your ragged robe to ease a sore spot on your hip bone and try not to think about food. Instead, you watch the shadows change shape as the sun rises. The square bustles louder now, with guards clanging their spear butts on stone to clear the path for a governor's litter, its silk curtains trailing golden tassels. You bow your head, not out of respect but fear. They rarely pause for beggars. A single flick of a sandal against your bowl could scatter your coins into the gutter, and no one would help you retrieve them. Your stomach growls audibly, making a boy selling honey cakes snicker as he passes. He waves a sticky cake under your nose, its scent of saffron, cinnamon, and toasted flour making your mouth water so fiercely you nearly choke on your own tongue. Then, laughing, he skips away, leaving you with only the memory of sweetness. You exhale shakily. You know how kindness often disguises cruelty here. But tonight is not about kindness. It is about survival. It is about dragging your mangled body through one more day, collecting enough crusts to keep your heart beating until dawn. You reach down to adjust your sandal thong, frayed and dark with filth, then lean back against the wall, listening to your shallow breaths and the fading echo of prayers from the nearby mosque. Somewhere, a woman cries out in childbirth. Somewhere, a dog barks at the rising sun. And here you sit, the barber's second brother, a one-eyed ghost haunting the bustling streets. You blink against the rising sun's glare as laughter rings down the dusty street. A group of young men swagger toward you, robes billowing with each confident step. Their belts jingle with tiny silver charms, and one carries a lute slung casually over his shoulder. You sense trouble before they even reach your shadow. Something about their careless joy, the cruel mirth dancing in their eyes as they glance between each other and you, makes your empty belly tighten with dread. They stop before you, forming a semicircle that blocks the gentle breeze. Sweat pools beneath your bandage, itching the scarred socket beneath. One of them, a tall youth with curling black hair, steps forward. "Old man," he says, voice dripping honey. "You look weary today. Have you eaten?" Your cracked lips part, your voice emerging rough and papery. "No, kind masters, I have not eaten since yesterday." "Ah," another says, tapping his slender fingers against his lute. "Then come with us. We are hosting a feast at my father's house. Lamb stuffed with almonds and raisins, honeyed wine, saffron rice. Come, let us feed you." His grin widens, revealing teeth stained faintly with khat. "We shall honor you." Historians still argue whether such pranks were a structured hazing ritual among Baghdad's rich youths, or simply spontaneous cruelty. Either way, tonight you are their entertainment. You rise shakily, clutching your bowl, and they lead you away, weaving through the morning crowds. The lute player hums a tune under his breath, something haunting and almost beautiful, though each note drips with mockery. Your sandals slap against the hot stone streets as they guide you through narrow alleys lined with closed wooden shutters. The smell here is sharper, rotting fish scales tossed by market cleaners, fresh dung from passing donkeys, the acrid sting of tanneries smoking in hidden courtyards. Eventually, they stop before a high gate carved with geometric patterns. One raps sharply. A servant peers out and, seeing the group, bows low before unlatching the iron bolt. You're ushered into a spacious courtyard shaded by silk canopies. The air is cool here, perfumed with rosewater sprinkled on sun-baked tiles. You drink in the sight of golden trays piled with glistening dates, bowls of thick yogurt drizzled with honey, steaming platters of saffron rice dotted with pistachios. Your mouth waters painfully. A joke drifts through your mind like an uninvited guest. At least if you choke here, they'll have napkins to clean your corpse with. They gesture for you to sit on a cushion embroidered with gold thread. You sink onto it, feeling the softness against your bruised bones. For a moment, hope flickers in your chest like a candle's last gasp. Perhaps they truly will feed you. Perhaps kindness still exists behind youthful arrogance. A servant approaches with a bronze basin and pitcher, washing each youth's hands with warm, scented water before moving to you. You thrust your grimy fingers forward eagerly. The water is blissfully hot, sluicing away the top layer of market filth. He towels your hands briskly and steps away. But then, the tall youth raises a hand. "Brothers," he announces dramatically, "our honored guest shall begin the feast." Your heart leaps as a servant sets a large covered platter before you. Steam curls from its edges. Trembling, you reach for the lid, but before your fingers touch it, the tall youth flicks it away with a laugh, revealing nothing but a pile of old chicken bones stripped bare. The youths howl with delight. The lute player strums a discordant flourish as you stare at the bones, your stomach twisting with shame. "Eat, beggar," one says between snickers. "Eat and bless our meal with your gratitude." You swallow hard, the sting of tears blurring your one good eye. A mainstream historical fact flashes numbly through your mind. In medieval Baghdad, over 30 types of bread were sold daily, from thick barley loaves to delicate honeyed cakes. But none of them will pass your lips today. The prank worsens. One boy pours a goblet of water and holds it to your mouth. As soon as your parched tongue flicks forward, he jerks it away, spilling it down your tattered robe. They roar with laughter, slapping each other's backs. The lute player strums a quick celebratory melody, his eyes glittering with malicious delight. A fringe tidbit emerges amid your humiliation. Some beggars believed tears mixed with river mud could soothe cracked lips when water was scarce. You almost try it now, except your dignity refuses to let your tears fall here, in this perfumed courtyard echoing with your shame. Historians still argue whether such humiliations were ever punished by city magistrates or dismissed as harmless games of the privileged. For you, it is neither harmless nor a game. It is pain without wounds, humiliation deeper than whips. As you sit there, trembling and dripping, you realize they never intended you to eat. They only intended to feast upon your misery. Your belly cramps with emptiness as you lower your eyes, praying silently for this cruelty to end. One youth claps his hands sharply. "Enough," he says. "Take him to the street, he stinks of poverty." They rise, robes swirling, as servants drag you upright, your legs almost giving way beneath you. The golden trays gleam in the sunlight. You inhale their honeyed fragrance one last time before you're shoved out through the carved gate into the heat and dust of the empty street. You stand swaying, the sun hammering your bowed head as the echoes of their laughter fade behind thick wooden doors. You stagger from their gate, heart pounding like a broken drum in your chest. Your ragged robe clings to your back, soaked with spilled water and sweat. As you limp along the deserted lane, the echo of their laughter coils around your shoulders like a snake, hissing reminders of your place beneath their silken shoes. But before you can even turn the corner back to your usual begging spot, rough hands grab your arms. You cry out in shock, your bowl clattering to the ground, coins scattering across the dust. Two guards in iron-studded leather jerk you upright. Their faces are hard with duty and disdain, eyes shaded beneath crested helmets. "This is him," says a familiar voice. You lift your trembling chin to see the tall youth from the feast, smirking in his embroidered robe, lute slung across his back like a warrior's sword. "That's the thief," he says. "He crept into my father's courtyard to steal our silverware." Your mouth works silently. No words emerge, only a thin rasp of disbelief as the guards twist your arms tighter behind your back. Historians still argue whether petty theft in medieval Baghdad was punished equally across classes, or if beggars faced harsher beatings for the same crime. Today, for you, the answer is clear. They drag you through the streets, your bare feet skidding over sun-baked stones. Merchants pause mid-shout. Mothers hush their children to watch, and vendors lean forward over baskets of pomegranates and okra to catch a glimpse. You hear someone mutter, "One-eyed dog," and another sigh. May God forgive him. At the magistrate's hall, they throw you to your knees. The polished marble floor is cool against your scabbed shins. You taste blood where your teeth cut your tongue upon landing, Before you stands the Qadi, the city magistrate, robed in dark indigo silk, turban coils pristine around his stern brow. He strokes his gray beard thoughtfully as the youth launches into his performance. "He was sneaking around our courtyard, my lord," the boy says, tears trembling theatrically in his lashes. "He tried to steal our silverware. We were so afraid for our lives. My father is away on pilgrimage, and my poor mother fainted from terror." You close your eye, shaking your head weakly. "I didn't—" "Silence!" snaps the Qadi. His voice rings across the marble chamber, echoing against arched windows latticed with carved cedar. "Do you deny these noble witnesses? A mainstream historical fact flickers through your terror. In Islamic jurisprudence, the testimony of free, respectable men carried decisive weight against beggars or slaves. Even your pleas taste useless on your tongue." 2 guards stand behind you, fingers tapping the hilts of their curved jambia daggers. The hall smells of sandalwood smoke and old ink-stained scrolls. You imagine those scrolls recording your sentence, your shame sealed forever in neat Arabic calligraphy. The lute-playing youth sighs dramatically. "We do not wish for his hand to be cut off. Merciful Qadi," he says, placing a delicate hand over his heart. "We only seek justice through the whip. Perhaps that will teach him humility." Your stomach flips as fear and nausea coil together. Historians still argue whether floggings were administered with thin canes or heavy leather straps in the 11th century. As the Qadi nods gravely, you decide it hardly matters. "Take him out," the Qadi commands. 50 lashes, and banish him from this city. We have no need for one-eyed thieves polluting our streets." You whimper as guards haul you upright. They drag you out into the blazing courtyard where the punishment post stands in shadow of the towering mosque dome. Pigeons flutter from the minaret as the call to prayer begins, rising above your ragged sobs. The guards tie your wrists high above your head. You feel the coarse hemp bite into your skin as the first lash whips across your back. Pain blooms like molten iron down your spine, somewhere amid the blows. A fringe tidbit drifts numbly into your mind. Medieval physicians believed vinegar mixed with egg yolk could soothe whip wounds. You almost laugh at the absurdity of your thoughts. But your breath comes out as a strangled sob instead. They untie you after the 50th lash, your robe shredded, sticky with blood. You slump to your knees, cheek pressed to sun-warmed stone. Dust clings to your tears. One guard spits near your head, while another reads aloud your banishment decree, voice echoing through your pain-dimmed ears. "Leave by sunset. If you remain within city walls by dawn tomorrow, you shall be executed as a thief and liar." You barely hear them. Your mind floats above your crumpled body, drifting beyond the gate, beyond the city, imagining only empty roads where no one knows your name. The boys are gone now, laughing their way back to perfumed chambers and honey cakes, leaving you with nothing but burning skin and a hollow, raging ache in your chest. The guards untie your wrists and toss your begging bowl onto your broken back before walking away, their sandals scuffing against stone in retreat. You lie there, tasting blood and dust, as shadows shift with the afternoon sun, wondering if you will ever find a corner of this earth not poisoned by cruelty. As dusk settles over the city like a weary sigh, you force your battered body upright. Every lash across your back pulses with molten agony, sending tremors down your ribs. You cradle your bowl to your chest as if it were a child, though it is empty, chipped, and streaked with your own dried blood. With each stumbling step toward the southern gate, pain claws at your spine, making your vision flicker. The alleyways you once knew blur into a single winding path of red clay walls and flickering lantern light. You pass familiar shops closing for the evening, the coppersmith hammering one last pot rim, the date seller gathering unsold fruit into woven baskets, the old woman selling lamp oil who once slipped you a copper coin when no one was watching. None of them meet your gaze tonight. Historians still argue whether banished beggars in medieval Baghdad ever returned under different names, or if city guards remembered each scarred face forever. You dare not test either theory. The guards at the gate barely glance at you as you limp past. To them, you are just another piece of street debris drifting away into the darkening plain. Outside the walls, night air tastes of cool dust and distant river reeds. The scent of city spices fades behind you, replaced by the sharp dryness of baked earth still radiating daytime heat. You walk until the walls are dim shapes against moonlit sands. Only then do your trembling legs collapse, and you sink to your knees under a dying acacia tree. A mainstream historical fact flickers through your mind. Along caravan roads, acacia pods were often gathered and boiled into medicinal drinks to soothe ulcers and coughs. You wonder if it can soothe the lashes tearing your back to shreds. But you have no pot, no fire, and no energy to gather fallen pods tonight. Your eye flutters shut. For a moment, you drift into half-sleep, dreaming of roast lamb stuffed with dates, spiced lentil stew, warm flatbread sprinkled with sesame. In your dream, your beard is thick again, your robe clean, your back unmarked. People bow slightly as you pass, and you nod with dignified grace, feeling the heaviness of coins in your sash. Then you wake to a gnawing coldness seeping through the thin cloth of your robe. A fringe tidbit surfaces from childhood stories. Some desert beggars slept sitting upright against trees to avoid scorpion stings. You shift carefully, back resting against the twisted trunk, and watch the stars bloom across the ink-dark sky. Somewhere far to the west, beyond the city walls, beyond the desert itself, lies the sea you've only heard described in poetry. Waves crashing like galloping horses, foam flashing under moonlight, salted breezes cooling sweat-soaked faces. You wonder if beggars by the sea smell of fish instead of dust, and whether their hearts ache with the same hollow hunger. Your thoughts scatter as the night wind picks up, rustling dry leaves overhead with a sighing lament. It almost sounds like prayer. Perhaps it is. Perhaps it is the desert praying for forgotten souls like yours. You chuckle softly, each vibration in your chest pulling at torn flesh on your back. The sound is half laughter, half sob. Historians still argue whether medieval beggars ever formed prayer circles beyond city gates, or if each clung silently to individual grief. Tonight, your only congregation is the silver glittering emptiness above you, and the quiet scurrying of nocturnal beetles at your feet. You shift again, pain lancing down your side like a hot knife. Shadows deepen as the moon climbs higher, casting pale light on your huddled shape beneath the tree. In the distance, jackals yip and wail, their calls echoing over the sands. You clutch your bowl tighter, imagining them padding closer, their yellow eyes gleaming in the dark. But they do not come. They know this night's meat is only skin and bone and grief. A final bitter joke flickers through your haze of pain. At least tonight, no boys will pretend to feed you. No magistrate will condemn you. The desert has no guards, no gates, no whipping posts, only endless sand and silent stars. Your one good eye slips closed again as you drift between dreams and darkness, each ragged breath catching on the memory of laughter that still burns deeper than any lash across your back. Morning arrives as a gray shimmer along the horizon, bleeding slowly into gold. You wake stiff and shivering under the acacia tree. back throbbing with every slight movement. The dry dawn breeze whispers over your torn skin like a lover's cruel touch, raising goosebumps along your filthy arms. With a groan, you push yourself upright, pressing a trembling hand to your aching ribs. Hunger gnaws at your belly, hollow and insistent. Your mouth feels lined with clay. You stand swaying, clutching your begging bowl, and scan the empty road ahead. Far in the distance, hazy and shimmering under the strengthening sun, you see low mud brick walls and the minaret of a small town rising beyond a thin line of palm trees. You begin walking, sandals scraping dust, each step sending spears of pain through your battered back. The sun climbs steadily, washing the desert in a merciless pale glare. Flies gather at the drying welts along your shoulders, buzzing persistently. You wave them away with shaking fingers, but they return again and again, drawn to the salt crusting your torn skin. Historians still argue whether these desert roads were patrolled daily by mounted guards protecting caravans, or only sporadically, leaving solitary travelers vulnerable to thieves and slavers. You see no one as you walk, just thorn bushes and parched earth broken by thin snaking lines of beetles crossing from shadow to shadow. By noon, your legs are trembling so hard you nearly collapse, but the smell drifting on the hot wind revives you. Roasting onions, garlic sizzling in oil, bread baking against the mud walls of an outdoor tandoor. You raise your head, chest tightening with desperate hope. The town is closer now, white dust swirling at its outskirts where camels kneel to be unloaded. You limp faster, teeth gritted against the agony lancing across your shoulders. You enter through a crumbling gate beneath an inscription praising God's mercy and the prophet's wisdom. Beyond, narrow streets twist between adobe houses painted with faded blue patterns. You see water sellers shouting praises of their cool jars, copper pot vendors clanging ladles to attract women buying cookware, children chasing each other with palm frond whips. You find a quiet spot beside the market entrance and sink to your knees, back pressed against the rough wall of a grain merchant's shop. Setting your begging bowl before you, you inhale deeply. The air is thick with coriander, cumin, and warm yeast, enough to make your stomach cramp in longing. A mainstream historical fact flickers through your mind, keeping your senses momentarily sharp despite your hunger. This region once exported wheat and barley to distant cities like Basra and Wasit, feeding thousands far beyond its dusty streets. But today, it feeds everyone but you. You murmur blessings on passers-by, voice hoarse with exhaustion. Coins clink into your bowl occasionally, but they are few and scattered. Some people wrinkle their noses and move quickly past. Others drop a copper without looking at you. Children stare wide-eyed at your bandaged socket until their mothers shoo them away. As shadows begin to lengthen, a merchant in a rust-red robe approaches. His beard is neatly combed, his leather sandals stitched with fine thread. He pauses before you, eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Peace be upon you, uncle," he says, his voice calm and low. "You are new here. From where do you come? And why do you sit here alone in this state?" You lower your head, throat tight with grief and shame. "I come from Baghdad, master," you whisper. "I was banished for a crime I did not commit. I am but a blind beggar seeking God's mercy and a crust of bread." He nods slowly, stroking his beard. Historians still argue whether charity to beggars in medieval Islamic towns was driven by personal piety alone or the unspoken fear of divine punishment for neglecting the poor. For you, his reason hardly matters. He sighs and reaches into the pouch at his sash, dropping 2 silver coins into your bowl. The bright chime makes your chest tighten with sudden hope. Then he leans closer. "If you wish," he says, eyes glinting with something unreadable. "I can offer you more than charity. I can offer you work, food, a place to sleep, clean clothes. You would serve my household. What do you say, uncle?" A fringe tidbit flickers unbidden into your weary mind. Some beggars believed it unlucky to accept sudden offers from strangers without first whispering God's name 3 times beneath their breath. Silently, your dry tongue forms the words, "Bismillah, Bismillah, Bismillah." You lift your gaze to meet his calm, smiling eyes. The sun has dipped low, shadows stretching like black ribbons across the packed earth. Fatigue, hunger, and pain swirl through your veins until you almost weep from relief. Work, food, clean clothes. You nod, unable to form words through your cracked lips. He extends a strong, calloused hand to help you rise. As you clutch it, his grip feels firm and warm, guiding you away from the market's fading bustle, deeper into narrow streets lit by flickering oil lamps. Your stomach growls so loudly you're certain he hears it, but he says nothing, only walks steadily beside you, somewhere in the cooling evening air, as donkey carts rattle past and crickets begin their high-night chorus. A tiny spark of hope glows in your chest. Perhaps this man is sincere. Perhaps tomorrow you will wake with warm bread in your belly, your back treated with healing salves, and your dignity restored beneath fresh linen. Or perhaps your exhausted mind flickers with a final sardonic joke. Perhaps you will simply wake to find a fresh new cruelty waiting, dressed in mercy's robes. The merchant's grip remains firm as he guides you through a maze of darkening alleys. Lamps flicker in alcoves, their orange glow illuminating faded murals of palms and Quranic verses curling gracefully across cracked plaster. You limp beside him, leaning heavily on your bowl like a cane. Each step sends stinging reminders of the lashes crisscrossing your back. Finally, he stops before a tall wooden door studded with iron nails. The scent of roasting garlic and coriander drifts through the latticed window above, making your empty stomach clench so hard you nearly retch. He knocks sharply 3 times. After a brief pause, the door creaks open to reveal a servant boy in a plain indigo tunic, eyes wide with curiosity at the sight of your ragged form. "Prepare the guest room," the merchant says, stepping inside and gesturing for you to follow. The boy bows quickly and scurries away. The entry hall is lit by brass lanterns, their carved patterns casting delicate shadows onto tiled floors. You blink at the sight. Walls lined with glazed pottery, delicate glass bottles filled with oils in amber, ruby, and emerald hues, and carved cedar chests topped with woven linen cloths embroidered in gold thread. Your filthy presence feels like an ink stain upon silk. Historians still argue whether merchants of middle-tier towns maintained such grand homes consistently, or if only the wealthiest possessed tiled entry halls and glazed pottery. For you, it is simple proof. This man is powerful here. He turns to you, his dark eyes calm, but unreadable. "Rest here a moment," he says, pointing to a low, cushioned bench along the wall. "I will prepare food for you soon. But first, you must be cleansed of the dust and sweat of your journey. It is only proper." You nod mutely, tears pricking your eye at the mention of food. As you sit, your limbs tremble with relief and exhaustion. The servant boy returns with another, both bearing folded towels, a small wooden chest of soaps, and a jug of steaming water perfumed faintly with rosemary. "Take him to the bathhouse," the merchant instructs. "Treat him with honor. They help you stand." Your knees buckle under your own weight, and you lean heavily on their small shoulders as they guide you through the house, down a corridor lined with decorative niches holding tiny oil lamps. The smell changes from garlic and cumin to warm steam and wood smoke. Your senses swim with dizziness and hope. The bathhouse door opens, releasing a wave of moist heat that curls around your face. Inside, lanterns flicker through drifting steam, illuminating stone benches built along the tiled walls. Water drips softly from brass spigots into sunken basins, their echoes magnified by the vaulted ceiling above. A mainstream historical fact drifts through your weary thoughts. In medieval Islamic towns, public and private bathhouses served not only hygiene, but social bonding, medical treatment, and spiritual purification before prayer. For you, it is simply warmth against your torn skin. The boys strip your ragged robe from your shoulders with gentle efficiency. The air hits your lash wounds, making you gasp sharply, but their small hands steady you as you ease down onto a stone bench. One boy dips a sponge into a basin of steaming water and begins to wash the caked blood and dust from your back. The heat burns at first, drawing a strangled cry from your lips, but then it eases into a dull, throbbing relief. They wash your arms, legs, and face with perfumed soap, working up a frothy lather that smells faintly of olive oil and rosemary. You feel the grime of days lift from your skin, your aching muscles loosening under their careful scrubbing. Your head swims with drowsy gratitude. A fringed tidbit flickers through your hazy mind. Medieval physicians sometimes added powdered crushed pearls to soap for the wealthy, believing it enhanced purity and calmed inflamed skin. You wonder what pearls would feel like against your old scars. One servant boy produces a small razor and begins shaving your stubbled scalp with practiced ease, the blade scraping lightly along your skull, rinsed frequently in hot water. Another trims your ragged beard, combing it carefully before shaving it away entirely, leaving your chin smooth and cool under the drifting steam. You inhale deeply, the moist air opening your parched lungs, your limbs so heavy with relaxation you can barely hold yourself upright. You let them guide you forward so they can wash your chest and belly, wiping carefully around the half-healed whip marks. Each touch is gentle, mechanical, as if they are washing an old dog too broken to bite. Historians still argue whether such bathhouse cleansing rituals were performed out of sincere charity for destitute guests or merely to prepare them for hidden humiliations. As the boys finish drying your limbs with warm towels and wrap a fresh linen robe around your trembling shoulders, you choose to believe, just for a moment, that this is kindness. They help you to your feet. The robe is simple but clean, smelling faintly of sun-dried cotton and cedar chests. Your scalp tingles in the cool air as you follow them from the bathhouse, water droplets still sliding down your neck. Each step feels both lighter and more vulnerable without your filthy robes as armor. In the corridor, the merchant waits, his expression calm and inscrutable. He looks you up and down, nodding approvingly. "Good," he says softly, his voice almost kind. "You are ready now." "Ready for what?" The question flickers across your weary mind, but your lips remain silent as he turns away, gesturing for you to follow deeper into the lamp-lit halls of his house. You follow the merchant deeper into his house, your bare feet silent on the tiled floors. Lantern light flickers across archways carved with delicate geometric patterns, illuminating brass bowls, stacked rugs, and wall niches lined with tiny ceramic bottles. The robe they gave you is soft against your raw skin, but without your beard and tangled hair, you feel naked, stripped of what little identity remained. He leads you down a narrow hallway where the scent of steam and rosewater grows stronger. Your pulse thrums with uncertainty. The merchant pauses before a broad cedar door banded with bronze. He pushes it open, revealing a bathhouse chamber far grander than the first. Here, lanterns hang from chains high in the domed ceiling, their light diffused through panels of colored glass that scatter green, red, and amber patterns across marble walls. Steam curls up from a sunken pool at the center, its water milky with oils. Slaves in simple linen waistcloths kneel along the tiled edges, scrubbing the marble with brushes, their bodies gleaming with sweat. A mainstream historical fact surfaces amid your rising dread. Private bathhouses like this were symbols of prestige among wealthy urban households in medieval Iraq, often featuring separate chambers for scented oils, massages, and hair removal rituals. This room reeks of luxury, yet in your hollow gut, it feels like the antechamber of something sinister. The merchant snaps his fingers. Two attendants hurry forward. One carries a shallow brass tray set with a razor, a small bottle of sweet almond oil, and a cup filled with an opaque liquid. The merchant gestures to the cup. "Drink," he commands softly. Your throat tightens. You glance at the attendants' impassive faces, then back at the cup. A fringe tidbit flickers through your mind. Some medieval physicians used drinks laced with henbane or opium to calm unruly patients before surgical procedures. Your heart skitters in your chest. Am I ill? Or is this something else? With trembling fingers, you lift the cup to your cracked lips and sip. The liquid is bitter, tasting faintly of poppy and anise. Heat floods your chest, then a spreading numbness. The merchant nods approvingly. Good. Relax. The attendants lead you to the edge of the steaming pool and ease your robe from your shoulders. Heat blooms across your freshly shaved skin, sweat springing instantly at your temples. You stand there, naked and trembling, feeling the thick, scented air clog your nostrils. They guide you down marble steps into the water. It laps at your thighs, your belly, your chest. Warmth seeps into your bruises and lash marks, dulling their ache until you almost sob with relief. But then, you notice something strange. The attendants are not washing you. They kneel around the pool, staring at you with blank, resigned eyes. Only the merchant remains standing. His silhouette blurs slightly through the scented steam, but his voice cuts sharp and clear. "You must be prepared," he says. "It is important to present you properly." He steps forward as an attendant hands him the razor. Slowly, he enters the pool. The warm water ripples around your waist as he circles you, scrutinizing your face, your shoulders, the angry welts striping your back. Then, with careful precision, he begins scraping the razor across your scalp, removing any remaining stubble. Each drag of the blade rasps against your tender skin. You try not to flinch. Historians still argue whether such full-body shaving rituals in Middle Eastern bathhouses were reserved for harem eunuchs or performed as general purification for slaves and concubines. You suspect the truth lies somewhere equally cruel. When your scalp is smooth, he pours the sweet almond oil into his palm and rubs it across your head, massaging firmly, working it down the nape of your neck. The oil smells faintly of roasted nuts and flowers. Beneath your numb daze, humiliation prickles like hot needles under your skin. Finally, he turns your chin toward him. His eyes are dark and calm, reflecting flickering lantern light like bottomless wells. "You are almost ready." He steps back and gestures. Two attendants move forward with towels, wrapping your oiled body and guiding you from the bath. You feel your knees buckling, weakness and terror making your steps falter. They half carry you to a small chamber off the main bath hall. Inside, a polished copper mirror leans against the wall. They sit you before it. You stare at your reflection, blinking at the stranger before you. Your scalp gleams with oil. Your beard is gone, your face sunken and weary. You look like neither a beggar nor a free man, just an object stripped bare, waiting to be labeled. A fringe memory surfaces of a storyteller's tale from your childhood. That of a fox captured by desert thieves, shaved and painted with henna to humiliate it before release. You remember laughing as a boy, imagining the foolish fox stumbling away, mocked by all the other animals. Now, in this steaming chamber, the joke burns in your chest like swallowed coals. The merchant enters once more, studying you in the mirror. "Perfect," he says softly, his voice curling around you like the steam, suffocating and final. "Tonight, your true work begins." Your stomach clenches around emptiness as he turns and disappears through the curtain of beaded copper chains, leaving you trembling before your own oiled, unrecognizable face. The attendants dress you in a fresh robe of soft linen dyed pale gold. Its hem brushes your ankles, clean and fragrant with cedar oil. They guide you through another tiled hallway, your bare feet silent upon geometric mosaics. Each step sends ripples of dull pain up your spine, but your mind is no longer anchored to your body. It drifts like a scrap of parchment caught in a desert whirlwind. At the end of the corridor, a heavy embroidered curtain hangs from a bronze rod. The merchant waits before it, his dark eyes flickering with lantern light. As you approach, he studies your shaved head, your oiled skin, your trembling hands clutching your begging bowl. He smiles faintly. "You look presentable." He draws the curtain aside, revealing a large receiving chamber. Carpets from Khorasan cover the floor, their reds and blacks vivid under dozens of oil lamps set in high niches. Cushioned divans line the walls, and in the center sits a low round table of polished ebony. Around it recline 4 men in robes of deep green and indigo. Their beards are neatly oiled, their rings flashing gold and carnelian as they gesture while speaking. The merchant bows slightly. "Honored guests, forgive my brief absence. I bring you tonight's acquisition, as promised." Your chest tightens. Acquisition. You remain kneeling just inside the curtain as he steps forward. "This man," he continues smoothly, "was a beggar in Baghdad, blind in one eye, whipped for petty theft, banished from the city walls. But I see value where others see filth." One of the men, robed in indigo with a golden sash, chuckles softly. "And what value do you propose he holds, friend?" "His story," the merchant says simply, spreading his hands. "A man's suffering makes a fine tale for the gods to savor. But for us, it makes a performance worth coin." He turns to you sharply. "Stand, speak." Your knees quiver as you rise to your feet, clutching your bowl so tightly your knuckles ache. Your mouth opens, but no words come out. The men recline back against their cushions, watching lazily, their eyes gleaming with the same predatory curiosity you once saw in street dogs circling a dying mule. Historians still argue whether beggar storytellers were common in private gatherings or remained confined to public squares and caravanserais. Tonight, you become their proof. "Tell them of your whipping," the merchant orders quietly. "Every stripe, every word of your condemnation." You swallow, throat dry as sun-baked clay. You begin speaking, voice trembling as you recount the guards dragging you to the post, the first lash splitting your skin, the 50 lashes tearing your back open like rotting cloth. You speak of your own choking sobs, of the magistrate's decree that banished you to die beyond city gates. A fringe tidbit emerges in your weary mind even as you speak. Some medieval listeners believed hearing the recounting of another's punishment protected them from divine retribution for their secret sins. Perhaps that is why their eyes glisten with fascination rather than pity. They interrupt occasionally. "How thick was the whip strap?" asks one. "Did you cry out with each blow, or only at the end?" asks another. You answer them all, your soul bleeding out through each word until you stand shaking and empty under the golden lamplight. When you finish, silence settles over the chamber. The men exchange slow nods. Finally, the merchant smiles thinly and claps his hands. Servants slip forward with trays of honeyed wine and spiced almonds. The men drink and eat, never once offering you a crumb. The merchant gestures to you again. Show them your scars. Your good eye stings with tears. But you obey. You slip your robe down to your waist, bearing your torn back to the warm, lamp-lit air. Gasps and murmurs ripple around the table. One man stands, approaches you, and trails his fingers lightly over the raised welts, tracing them as if reading script etched into your flesh. "A fine canvas," he murmurs. Each mark tells a story, each lash a line of poetry and flesh. You stand rigid, your skin crawling at his touch. A sickly chuckle rises in your throat, but you swallow it down. You remain silent as he returns to his cushion, as the men resume their quiet conversation, now and then glancing at your exposed back with scholarly interest. Historians still argue whether such displays were viewed as moral lessons or perverse entertainment among wealthy elites. In this room, it is clear. You are not a man, you are an exhibit, a testament to their mercy and power, a reminder that no fall from grace is too great to be milked for their amusement. Eventually, the merchant gestures for you to cover yourself. "Enough for tonight," he says, his voice soft and final. "Leave us now. Rest. You will perform again tomorrow." Two attendants approach to guide you away. As you limp down the corridor, your head bowed under the weight of humiliation and fatigue, a bitter joke flickers through your dazed mind. Perhaps tomorrow they will ask for a different story. If only you had something left to give them besides your pain. You spend the night curled on a straw mat in a windowless chamber at the back of the merchant's house. The walls are plain mud brick, bare except for a small niche holding a flickering oil lamp. Shadows dance across your shaved scalp as you lie staring at the cracked ceiling, exhaustion pressing heavy on your chest, but sleep refusing to come. Each time you close your eye, you see the men's faces again, curious, amused, hungry for every detail of your suffering. Their laughter echoes in your skull, mingling with the merchant's smooth voice describing your value like livestock in the Friday market. A mainstream historical fact surfaces unbidden as you shift against the coarse mat. Medieval slave quarters often lay at the edges of wealthy households, windowless and bare, to keep servants out of sight and thought. Tonight, it feels like a tomb, the lamp guttered low hours ago. Only its faint glow remains, illuminating the clay bowl of water set by your mat. You lift it to your cracked lips, sipping slowly, feeling the lukewarm liquid trickle down your dry throat. You are too tired to care if it's clean. Your mind drifts, ragged and unfocused, weaving memory and dream. You see yourself as a boy again, sprinting barefoot across sun-warmed rooftops, chasing pigeons with your brothers. Your mother's voice floats from an open courtyard window, singing as she bakes barley bread sprinkled with salt and fennel seeds. The memory tightens your chest until tears slip from your good eye, trailing down your cheek to soak into the straw. Historians still argue whether beggars in medieval Baghdad were mostly born into poverty or cast out by misfortune. For you, the answer is simple. You were born loved, and life tore that away piece by piece. At dawn, an attendant arrives, silent as a shadow. He carries a folded robe the color of wet sand and a tray bearing thin lentil porridge and a chunk of hard date cake. He sets it before you and withdraws without a word. Hunger tears through your belly at the sight. You gulp the porridge despite its blandness, chewing each spoonful until it becomes a paste thick with tears. The date cake sticks in your throat, but you force it down, too desperate to care about its dryness. A fringe tidbit flickers through your aching mind. Some beggars believed that eating dates before dawn prayers protected the soul from desert spirits until sunrise. You whisper a shaky prayer under your breath, though you doubt any spirit cares for you now. After you finish, 2 attendants arrive to wash your face and hands with scented water. They dress you in the new robe and guide you back to the receiving chamber. Morning light spills through high-arched windows, illuminating the swirling patterns of Persian carpets beneath your feet. The merchant sits alone at the low table, sipping dark coffee from a tiny, handleless cup. He gestures for you to stand before him. His eyes trace your shaved scalp, your bent shoulders, your trembling hands clutching your empty begging bowl. "You performed well last night," he says softly, setting his cup down with a faint chime against the tray. "My guests were satisfied." Your stomach clenches at his words, bile rising behind your tongue. Satisfied. Like men after a feast of roast lamb and sweet melon. He leans back against his cushion, studying you thoughtfully. "Tonight, you will tell them of your brothers." He continues, "They are eager to hear the full tale of your family's misfortunes. Speak of each one. Speak honestly, for embellishment will anger me." Historians still argue whether the Barber's family in these tales represents moral warnings against arrogance or cautionary portraits of fate's cruelty. For you, they are simply ghosts you left behind long ago. The merchant's eyes narrow. "Do not disappoint me," he murmurs, voice like cool silk over a hidden blade. He claps his hands sharply. Attendants enter, one carrying a bowl of thin henna paste and a bundle of fresh linen strips. The merchant gestures to them. "Prepare him," he says, standing smoothly. "Tonight's performance must be vivid." As he leaves the chamber, the attendants kneel beside you, dipping strips of linen into the henna and wrapping them tightly around your arms and wrists until they stain your skin with dark, swirling marks. A fringe tidbit surfaces through your fear. In some desert tribes, henna markings were believed to confuse evil spirits and protect the wearer from curses. You almost laugh. If only they could confuse men like him. When they finish, they stand silently, their eyes blank with resignation. You stare down at your stained arms, each swirl and mark glowing dark red against your thin skin. You feel less like a man than ever, and more like a parchment inscribed for another's amusement. The merchant's voice drifts back to you from the hallway, echoing against tiled walls. "Prepare well, my brothers. Tonight, we feast upon suffering." You close your eye as hot tears spill down your cheeks, tasting of salt, of grief, and of the final embers of hope snuffed out in the silence of your trembling chest. Evening falls again with the sun bleeding gold into the west, shadows stretching like silent specters through the merchant's tiled halls. Lanterns flicker to life one by one, their orange glow gilding the henna stains wrapping your arms in dark, intricate bands. Attendants guide you back to the receiving chamber where the merchant's guests recline, sipping wine the color of garnets and nibbling figs stuffed with almonds. You kneel where you are placed, your shaved scalp lowered, your empty begging bowl resting in your lap like a shrine to all you have lost. The merchant lounges on his cushion, a thin smile curving his lips as he gestures lazily with his cup. "Tonight," he says softly, "he will tell you of his brothers." Your pulse stutters in your chest. The men lean forward with gleaming eyes, their rings winking in the lamplight as they settle deeper into cushions perfumed with rose water and cedar. You lift your gaze, staring at the embroidered hem of the merchant's robe. Your voice trembles as you begin. "My second brother," you say, "was called Al-Hadar, the plasterer. He was strong, broad-shouldered, with hands that could shape walls smooth as river stone. But his temper..." You swallow against the tightness in your throat. His temper burned hot as summer sand. The merchant sips his wine, eyes half-lidded as you speak. The Qadi sentenced him to repay the family thrice over or lose his hand. He fled the city by night, leaving his tools behind. Leaving. Your voice cracks. "Leaving us," a guest in green robes chuckles softly. A fool's pride is always costlier than his work. They gesture for you to continue. Your arms tremble as you clutch your bowl tighter. Henna stains darkening in the lamplight. "My third brother," you whisper, "was called Al-Karat, the woodcarver. His hands were delicate as a calligrapher's. He carved prayer niches for mosques, frames for holy texts, inlays of ivory and teak. His work was praised from Wasit to Kufa." You pause, chest tight with grief. "But he was cursed with blindness in one eye, like me, and was mocked by jealous rivals. They spread word that he carved hidden blasphemies into his panels. One day, guards came to his shop and found nothing. But rumor rots faster than truth. No mosque would buy from him again. Historians still argue whether professional sabotage through slander was as common as violent guild rivalries in medieval craft circles. You know it was common enough to destroy your brother's life. He wandered the streets." You continue softly, begging for crusts beside me until one morning. I woke and he was gone. I searched for him until dusk, only to find him floating face down in the canal, his hair snagged on a drifting branch. The guests grow silent. One man sets his wine cup down, brow furrowed as though wrestling with faint pity before brushing it away. Another nods approvingly. "A fine tragedy. Very instructive." The merchant leans forward, dark eyes glittering. "Tell them of the rest," he murmurs. "Leave nothing out." Your head bows lower as you speak of your fourth brother, Al-Zayat, the oil merchant, cheated by his suppliers, forced to dilute his oil with water until his customers turned on him, beating him in the market square. Of your fifth brother, Al-Bazaz, the cloth dealer, who fell in love with a courtier's concubine and was caught sneaking into the harem, whipped near to death before being sold into slavery in Oman. Of your sixth brother, Al-Saka, the water carrier, kicked by a mule while hauling jars through the souk, his ribs crushed, dying 3 days later under a straw mat like the one you now call your bed. Each story unravels from your chest like unspooling silk, leaving you emptier with every word. Tears drip from your chin onto your bowl, vanishing into its chipped hollowness. A fringe tidbit drifts through your dimming thoughts. In some desert tribes, storytellers were buried with a piece of reed in their mouths to carry their final tales to the gods. You wonder what final story your bones will whisper beneath shifting sands. When you finish, the room is silent except for the hiss of oil lamps. The merchant's guests recline against their cushions, eyes closed in silent contemplation, as though digesting a fine meal. The merchant himself leans back, folding his hands calmly across his lap. "Well done," he says softly. "Your brothers live again in your words, only to die for us, as they died for you." He gestures to the attendants. "Take him away. Let him sleep. Tomorrow we will decide if his voice still holds value." They guide you from the room, your legs trembling so violently you nearly collapse. As they lead you down the lamplit corridor, the merchant's final words echo through your fading consciousness. "Remember, beggar, your pain is your price." The straw mat feels colder tonight. Your body curls tighter into itself, arms wrapped around your empty bowl as though it holds the warmth you crave. The henna stains on your arms flake against your cheek as you shift, the faint scent of dried leaves and bitter earth rising with each trembling breath. Sleep comes in ragged bursts, shattered by memories that replay themselves against the cracked mud brick walls. Your brothers' faces, the magistrate's whip, the merchant's voice curling like black smoke around your ears. At dawn, you wake to the scrape of the chamber door. An attendant enters with another thin bowl of lentil porridge and half a date cake. You sit up slowly, every bone aching, and eat in silence. The bland mush sticks to your teeth, but you force it down. Hunger is a sharper pain than pride. A mainstream historical fact drifts through your weary mind. In medieval Baghdad, dawn meals for the poor were often thin soups of barley, lentil or chickpea flour, seasoned only with salt and cumin, if one was fortunate. Today you taste only ashes. The attendant collects the empty bowl and robe you slept in, replacing it with a fresh linen garment dyed pale brown. Two other servants arrive, one carrying a pot of perfumed oil and another with a brass mirror. They rub the oil into your scalp and arms, then comb your eyebrows until they lie flat and neat. Historians still argue whether daily oiling was a routine of dignity or a ritual preparation for subjugation among medieval servants. For you, it feels like polishing an object before placing it on display. When they finish, they guide you out into the courtyard, the early morning sun already burning hot against the tiled floor. The merchant waits under a small awning draped with linen to soften the light. A tray sits before him, bearing a small jug of goat milk and a cluster of ripe figs. You smell their sweetness from across the courtyard, stomach cramping with longing. He gestures you forward. You kneel, head bowed low. "You spoke well last night," he says softly, sipping from a fine porcelain cup. "But words alone are fleeting. Today, you will prove your worth to my household." Your throat tightens. You keep your gaze fixed to the ground. "You will clean the animal pens," he continues calmly. "The goats must be scrubbed before evening slaughter, their hooves cleaned, their coats combed free of dung. You will do this alone." A fringe tidbit flickers bitterly through your mind. Some medieval beggars believed touching goat dung before noon brought a day of unbreakable misfortune. You almost laugh out loud. As if your luck could worsen, two servants lead you to the pen at the rear of the property. Goats bleat softly as you approach, their thin bodies shifting among the straw. You fall to your knees beside the first animal, dipping a coarse brush into a bucket of water and beginning to scrub its hooves. Your back screams with every movement, lashes tearing open beneath your robe. Flies gather, buzzing hungrily at the damp streaks of red soaking through the linen. Hours blur together under the pitiless sun. You scrape caked filth from tangled hair, comb out burrs, and pour buckets of lukewarm water over trembling flanks. The goats bleat in protest, shifting their small, hard hooves across your bare feet. Dust clings to your oiled scalp until it forms a gritty paste, dripping salty sweat into your good eye until it burns and blurs your vision. A mainstream historical fact drifts through your fading focus. Goats were prized across Iraq for their milk, hides, and sinew threads used in bow making. Their meat roasted whole for feasts celebrating births and business contracts. Today, These goats are merely another reminder of your worthlessness. They will be roasted with honor while you kneel in filth. As the sun dips toward afternoon, you pause, leaning heavily against the pen wall. Pain throbs in your spine like molten metal poured down your bones. You close your eye and drift briefly, dreaming of your mother's courtyard again. Cool shade, the scent of cardamom and cumin from her clay stove, her voice singing as she brushed crumbs from your hair. Historians still argue whether slaves and beggars in medieval Iraq were permitted private prayers during their labors or forced to defer all worship to evening hours. You mouth silent verses now, half prayer, half lamentation. Your lips cracked and trembling with each syllable. The sun begins to fall behind the courtyard walls, bleeding orange across the packed earth. Servants arrive to carry away the now gleaming goats. One pauses, staring at you with faint disgust before turning away. You remain kneeling in the trampled straw and dung, hands coated in dirt and blood, your empty bowl resting beside you. A final sardonic joke flickers through your mind as dusk settles over the pens. At least today you were useful. Even dung-polished goats are worth more than stories. Your stomach growls painfully, but no one comes with food. The courtyard empties as lanterns flicker to life in the halls beyond. You close your eye and lower your head to the filthy ground, breathing in the bitter scent of straw, dust, and fading hope. Night falls with a brittle chill. You lie curled in the straw beside the goat pens, too exhausted to shiver, your thin robe stiff with dried sweat and blood. Lantern light flickers along the courtyard walls, illuminating drifting moths and the faint glow of your henna-stained arms folded beneath your head. No one calls you back inside. No food comes. You close your eye, drifting between waking and sleep, your dreams filled with broken images of your brothers, each bearing their own whip scars, each staring at you in silence before turning away. A mainstream historical fact flickers dully through your mind. Medieval urban households often left unclean slaves or beggars outside overnight to prevent pollution of the sleeping quarters, citing both legal codes and ritual purity beliefs. Tonight, you feel no purer for their caution. At dawn, an attendant kicks your foot lightly. You jolt awake, curling tighter on instinct. He drops a bundle of fresh linen robes beside you and gestures for you to stand. Your legs scream with stiffness as you rise unsteadily, clutching the pen fence for balance. He leads you through quiet halls to the bathhouse again. Steam curls from behind a latticed cedar door. The scent of olive oil soap and sandalwood fills the air, almost too rich for your empty stomach to bear. Two servants strip your filthy robe and pour steaming water over your bowed head, the heat scalding your raw back until you gasp sharply. They scrub you with rough sponges until your skin burns clean of straw dust, goat dung, and blood. Historians still argue whether such harsh scrubbing rituals were purification or punishment in Middle Eastern bathhouses. For you, it is merely another reminder that your body is no longer yours. They dry you roughly and dress you in fresh linen robes, this time dyed pale ash gray. The cloth smells faintly of sun-warmed cotton, clean but thin. Another servant approaches with a brass mirror, forcing you to look at your reflection, shaved scalp gleaming, cheekbones sunken, eye ringed with purple shadows, your lips cracked and pale. A fringe tidbit flickers across your thoughts. Some storytellers painted kohl beneath their eyes to deepen expression during recitations. You wonder whether it would hide your grief or highlight it. Finally, they guide you back to the receiving chamber. The merchant's guests have gathered again, reclining on cushions, sipping dark, bitter coffee sweetened with cardamom syrup. One man holds an ivory-handled fan, waving it lazily against the humid dawn air. Another polishes a silver ring inset with a glimmering green peridot. The merchant gestures for you to kneel before them. You sink down heavily, clutching your begging bowl tight to your chest, feeling its chipped rim bite into your ribs. "Today," the merchant says softly, sipping his coffee, "you will speak of your journey from Baghdad. Every detail, every shame." Your stomach twists. The journey, the endless road of dust and pain, the blistered feet and burning sun. You begin speaking in a low, shaking voice. "You trudge from the city gates," you say, falling into second-person narration by habit, as you once did when telling tales for copper coins in the market. The guards shove you with their spears. You stumble into the dust, your feet bare, the sun already burning overhead. You hear their laughter fading behind you as you limp forward. You speak of the first night spent curled behind a thorn bush, stones digging into your hips, jackals howling in the far dunes. You speak of your thirst, how you crouched beside stagnant puddles left by donkey carts, skimming away green scum with trembling fingers. You speak of the bruises blooming along your ribs from guards' boots, of the dark, bruised pride that bloomed deeper inside your chest each step away from your city. A mainstream historical fact drifts numbly through your words. Banishment beyond city walls in medieval Iraq was considered both punishment and protection of urban purity, forcing the condemned to become wanderers or outlaws. For you, it became a death sentence measured in footsteps. The men listen in silence, eyes narrowed in focused curiosity. One raises a hand, interrupting. "Did you pray during your journey?" You nod weakly. "Each dawn and dusk. Though my ablutions were with sand and dust rather than water," he nods thoughtfully. "A pious beggar is rarer than a truthful vizier." Another chuckles softly at the joke, swirling his coffee cup. "Continue." Your voice grows hoarse as you speak of the old farmer who threw a moldy onion at your feet, of the village boys who pelted you with goat dung, shouting, "Blind dog," as you limped past. Your good eye blurs with tears you refuse to shed. A fringe tidbit flickers through your weary mind. Some desert ascetics walked barefoot for years, believing each cut and blister purified them of worldly attachment. You wonder whether your suffering has made you pure or simply broken beyond repair. The merchant sips his coffee, dark eyes locked on your bowed head. "Tell them how you survived." You swallow, throat burning. "I begged by the roadside," you whisper. "A handful of barley here, a crust of old bread there. I learned to sleep in thorn thickets where jackals would not come. I learned to drink dew from stone hollows before sunrise." Historians still argue whether such desert survival knowledge was widespread among beggars or a specialized skill of desert wanderers. For you, it was simple necessity. When you finish, silence settles over the room like falling dust. The men sip their coffee and stretch languidly, satisfied by your humiliation. The merchant gestures lightly. "Take him away. Rest him well today. Tonight, we will test his worth in other ways." Your pulse stutters at his words, cold fear spreading through your chest. Two attendants approach, lifting you under your arms as your knees buckle. As they guide you from the room, your bowl clatters to the tiled floor behind you, ringing hollow as an unspoken prayer. They carry you back to the windowless chamber, where you collapse onto your straw mat, body trembling from exhaustion and dread. The scent of cedar oil still clings faintly to your skin, mingling with sweat and fear as you curl onto your side. Clutching your empty bowl like a dying child hugs a broken toy. Lantern light flickers from the hallway outside, casting thin gold bars across the cracked mud brick walls. You stare at those shifting lines, imagining they are the ropes of a merchant's dhow sailing into the dusk toward Basra, away from this place, away from yourself. A mainstream historical fact drifts hazily through your mind. Medieval merchant dhows carried not only spices and silks, but human cargo, slaves from Zanzibar, concubines from Sind, and servants from inland deserts, their bodies traded for coin, their names lost on the tide. Tonight, you feel like one of them, unmoored and nameless. Sleep comes in shallow bursts. You dream of walking barefoot through hot dust, your bowl clinking at your hip with each step. Your brothers walk ahead, their faces turned away. You call to them, but no sound emerges, only the whisper of the desert wind answering in your own broken voice. You wake to the scrape of the door. An attendant enters carrying a folded robe the color of river clay. He sets it beside you, then kneels and lifts a steaming bowl of lentil porridge to your lips. You drink slowly, too weak to hold it yourself. Each swallow scratching your raw throat like sandpaper. A fringe tidbit flickers through your foggy mind. Some Sufi mystics fasted for weeks to burn away the self, believing hunger left only the soul's bare truth behind. If so, you think bitterly. Your truth is nothing but emptiness. When you finish, he wipes your lips with a clean rag, then helps you dress. Your arms tremble as you slip into the robe, each movement sending jagged pain through your spine. Another servant arrives with a small pot of thick, dark coal. He lines your eyes carefully, smoothing the black pigment across your lids until your good eye gleams like polished onyx. Historians still argue whether coal was used by beggars to enhance expression or merely to protect against sun glare and flies. Today, it makes you feel like a puppet painted for the stage. They guide you into a smaller receiving room where the merchant sits alone, scribbling on thin folded parchment with a reed pen. He glances up, eyes narrowing slightly at your appearance. "Sit," he says softly, gesturing to a cushion before him. You obey, folding your legs beneath your robe, head bowed low. He studies you in silence, the reed pen tapping gently against his thumb. Finally, he speaks. "Tonight," he murmurs, "we have new guests, traders from Basra. They wish to hear tales of magic, curses, and blindness." His dark eyes flicker across your shaved scalp, your henna-stained arms, your coal-rimmed eye. You will perform for them. Your chest tightens until each breath comes shallow and ragged. Perform. The word coils around your ribs like a constrictor. You nod weakly, feeling the last threads of yourself unravel further. He sets down the reed pen, folding his hands calmly on the table. "Tell me a preview. Something enticing." Your lips tremble as you gather the ragged scraps of story remaining in your mind. Finally, in a whisper, you begin. You open your eye upon the desert dunes. The sun burns overhead like a vengeful god. Your feet bleed on hot sand. Ahead, a tower rises from the dust, an ivory spire carved with symbols that dance in the heat haze. A curse guards its gate, ancient words etched into black stone, promising blindness to any who approach. The merchant leans back slightly, eyes glinting with quiet approval. "Good. Very good. They will enjoy that." He claps his hands lightly. An attendant enters with a small clay jug and a cup. The merchant gestures. "Give him a little wine. He needs his voice tonight." The attendant pours a dark red liquid into the cup and lifts it to your lips. It tastes sharp and sour, tinged with resin and cloves. Warmth blooms in your empty stomach, sending faint shivers through your thin frame. A mainstream historical fact flickers in your blurred mind. Medieval Islamic law forbade wine, but wealthy houses kept it hidden for private gatherings, spiced with cinnamon, clove, and storax resin to disguise its scent from cautious neighbors. Tonight, it feels like swallowing molten glass. When you finish, the merchant rises smoothly, adjusting his robes. Prepare him for the evening, he instructs his attendants. Let him rest until the first guests arrive. They guide you back to the bathhouse. There, by lantern light and scented steam, they scrape your nails clean with slivers of pumice stone and brush perfumed oil into the dry cracks of your feet. You sit silently, staring at the rippling water, your reflection fractured and wavering. Historians still argue whether such meticulous grooming of beggar storytellers was ritual, protection against impurity, or simply spectacle for their master's pride. For you, it is just another reminder that every part of you now belongs to them. Finally, as dusk thickens outside, the attendants dress you in a robe of dark indigo embroidered at the cuffs with simple silver thread. They smear another line of kohl beneath your eye, darkening its hollow shadow until you look more corpse than man. You stand trembling in the lantern-lit bath chamber, clutching your empty bowl as the first sounds of guests arriving echo through the merchant's halls. Laughter, footsteps, the faint scent of rosewater and burning myrrh drifting on the warm night breeze. Your chest tightens around a single, silent plea. Let this be the last story I ever tell. They lead you through dim corridors glowing with lantern light, your bare feet silent on mosaic tiles that ripple with floral and geometric patterns. The faint strains of lute music drift from the receiving chamber ahead, mingling with the warm scent of sandalwood smoke curling in graceful columns toward the arched ceiling. As you enter, the merchant's guests turn to watch. They recline on embroidered cushions of indigo and maroon, sipping golden wine from slender glass cups etched with silver vines. Their eyes flicker over your thin frame, your dark, kohl-lined eye, your henna-stained arms folded around your begging bowl. The merchant raises a hand for quiet. "Honored friends," he says smoothly, "tonight our storyteller will reveal curses, blindness, and ancient towers lost to time. Hear him well. Your chest tightens as all eyes fix upon you. You kneel at the center of the room, the embroidered carpet scratching your knees through the thin robe. Your good eye sweeps across the assembled faces. The Basran trader with his curled mustache and heavy emerald ring. The thin man with a birthmark like a cloud over his cheekbone. The merchant himself, lounging with calm satisfaction flickering behind his hooded gaze. You draw a trembling breath and begin in a whisper. You trudge across the salt flats, the sun a white furnace overhead. Your feet blister on crystals sharp as broken glass. Each step tears skin from bone. But you walk on, for beyond the horizon rises the cursed tower of Zulkarnain, its ivory spire etched with words so old the wind cannot erode them. A mainstream historical fact surfaces in your numbed mind. Zulkarnain is a figure linked by medieval scholars to Alexander the Great, believed in some traditions to have built a barrier against Gog and Magog, two nations prophesied to bring ruin. You weave this detail softly into your narration, watching as your listeners lean closer. Historians still argue. You continue in a hushed tone. Whether Zulkarnain was Alexander or another king who carved roads through mountains with iron and prayer, but to you, trudging across this burning salt, he is only a name that echoes like your thirst. A ripple of appreciation moves through the gathered men. One adjusts his cushion and gestures for you to continue. The lute player plucks soft minor notes that hang trembling in the warm, scented air. You reach the tower. You whisper, voice cracking. Its gates stand open, carved from ebony and inlaid with brass letters spelling curses in forgotten tongues. A breeze carries out the scent of old incense and rotting time. You step across the threshold and blindness takes you. Your words hang in silence. The men watch, rapt, their gazes locked to your trembling lips. In the darkness, you continue. You hear the tower's voice. It whispers every sin you ever committed, each spoken in your mother's voice, your brother's voices, your own voice echoing back at you until your mind fractures like dried mud beneath desert rain. A fringe tidbit surfaces unbidden. Medieval desert mystics believed certain towers and ruins whispered curses into the ears of those who slept within, driving them mad with grief or revealing hidden truths about their fates. You weave this into your story, and the Basran trader nods slowly, his emerald ring glinting in the lantern light as he clasps his hands together. One man speaks softly. And then what does he do, this blind wanderer? You swallow, your throat burning with thirst and fear. He crawls out of the tower, dragging himself across salt and sand, guided only by pain and prayer. He prays to a God who no longer hears him, and he weeps tears of blood into his empty begging bowl. The lute music stills, leaving your final words hanging in heavy silence. A single lantern flickers overhead, its flame bending in the faint breath of wind from the courtyard. The merchant claps his hands softly. "A fine performance," he murmurs. "Honored guests, let us drink to the power of curses and the blindness of fate." Servants hurry forward, pouring fresh golden wine into waiting cups. The Basran trader sets a single copper coin into your begging bowl. Its clink against the ceramic echoes in your hollow chest, louder than any applause. Historians still argue whether beggar storytellers were ever truly paid or merely given alms to maintain the illusion of dignity. Tonight, the copper coin feels like a branding mark pressed into your soul. The merchant gestures to the attendants. "Take him away. Let him rest. He will perform again at dawn." Two servants lift you by your arms. Your knees buckle with weakness as they guide you from the chamber. Your bowl cradled against your chest like the last shard of your crumbling self. As they lead you down the dark corridor, the lute music resumes, drifting after you with soft melancholy notes that cling to your mind like the scent of burning myrrh. A bitter, silent joke flickers through your fading thoughts. Perhaps the tower's curse was blindness, so that the wanderer would never see how worthless he had become. Your eye blurs with tears as you stagger forward into the waiting darkness beyond the lantern's final glow. They lay you down in the windowless chamber once more, your straw mat scratchy beneath your raw, trembling back. The lantern outside flickers softly through the slit beneath the door, painting faint golden ripples across the cracked walls. Your begging bowl rests beside your head, empty save for the single copper coin clinking faintly with every ragged breath you take. You stare at it, feeling its weight press upon your chest heavier than any stone. A copper coin for your stories, your curses, your blindness, your worth. You close your eye and drift into shallow sleep. Dreams curling around you like coils of smoke. You stand beneath the tower of Zulkarnain again. Blind, alone, the salt flats burning your feet to bone. In your bowl, you hear the tower's voice whispering all your sins in the voices of your brothers, your mother, your younger self laughing before it knew what suffering was. You wake hours later to the scrape of the door. An attendant enters, silent as a shadow. He carries a fresh robe dyed dark earth brown and a bowl of lentil porridge, steam curling gently into the chill dawn air. You sit up slowly, your body screaming with stiffness, and accept the bowl with trembling hands. You sip the thin porridge in silence, feeling each swallow coat your throat in bland warmth. A mainstream historical fact flickers through your numbed thoughts. Lentils, though cheap, were prized for their sustaining strength in medieval Baghdad, served often with onions or sumac if the cook was generous. Today, your bowl carries only a handful of boiled grain, but it tastes of life all the same. When you finish, the attendant wipes your lips with a damp rag, then helps you stand. 2 other servants arrive, rubbing perfumed oil into your cracked feet and massaging your shoulders until tears prick your eye from mingled pain and release. One lines your eyelids with fresh coal, while another combs scented rosewater through your eyebrows, shaping them neatly above your bruised cheekbones. Historians still argue whether such cosmetic preparation was a dignity offered to beggars or simply another layer of performance for their master's pride. Today, it feels like a final painting of a pot before it is shattered. The merchant arrives soon after, his robe sweeping across the dusty floor as he enters. He watches silently as the attendants finish your grooming, dark eyes flickering over your thin frame, your empty bowl, your trembling hands. Today, he says softly, you will tell your final story. Your chest clenches tight around his words. Final! Relief and terror mingle in your lungs like bitter smoke. He gestures, and the attendants guide you through quiet hallways glowing with dawn light spilling through narrow windows. The receiving chamber is empty save for him. He sits cross-legged on a cushion, a small brazier burning beside him, filling the cool air with the sharp scent of frankincense and cedar. Sit, he says quietly. You kneel before him, clutching your bowl so tight it digs into your ribs. The copper coin rattles softly within. He studies you for a long moment, silent except for the hiss of burning coals. Finally, he speaks. Tell me of your blindness. Make me feel it. Your mouth trembles. You draw a shaking breath and begin. You open your eye upon the world. You whisper, voice rough with fear and grief. The light is too bright. It burns you. Shapes blur and smear until everything is a river of color and pain. You hear voices around you, but they drift like reeds bending in wind you cannot feel. You reach out with your hands, trembling, seeking something solid to hold. But all you find is emptiness. Your eye blurs with tears as your voice cracks. You walk forward, stumbling, your feet raw and bleeding on stones you cannot see. Your brothers call to you, but their voices fade into the brightness until all that remains is silence and light. You scream, but you hear only the echo within your own skull. The merchant closes his eyes, breathing in the words as though they are incense. Historians still argue, you continue hoarsely, whether blindness brings inner vision or only darkness. For you, it brings only emptiness. You lower your head, tears dripping onto your bowl, mixing with the copper coin's metallic tang. The merchant opens his eyes, watching you calmly. Then he nods to the attendants. Take him away. They guide you out of the chamber. Your knees buckle with exhaustion as you stumble down the corridor, your bowl rattling softly in your grip. They lead you into the courtyard. Dawn light spilling gold across the tiled ground. You blink against its brightness, clutching your bowl to your chest as though it contains your final breath. The merchant follows behind, his robes whispering against the stone. In the center of the courtyard stands a small stone fountain. Water trickles from a bronze spout shaped like a lion's mouth, falling into a shallow basin below. The attendants guide you to its edge and gesture for you to kneel. You obey, bowing low, your forehead pressing against the cool stone rim. You hear the merchant's quiet voice drifting down to you, like the final breeze before dawn becomes day. You have served your purpose, he murmurs. Go now to the tower of your own darkness. A fringe tidbit flickers faintly through your mind. Some desert tribes believed fountains marked the gates to the underworld, their trickling water carrying final prayers into the earth's silent depths. You close your eye, tears slipping down your cheeks to mix with the fountain's clear water. In your begging bowl, the single copper coin gleams in the morning light like a fragment of a sun you will never see again. And so, my friend, your journey slows now. Feel the gentle hush of dawn settling across the courtyard stones, the lingering coolness of fading night clinging to your oiled skin like a final silken veil. The trickle of the fountain whispers to you, soft and unhurried, each droplet falling with quiet certainty into the waiting pool below. Breathe in the faint scent of frankincense curling upward in pale blue smoke, drifting around your bowed head before rising into the brightening sky above. The kohl lining your lashes feels heavy now, like a final shadow cast upon your weary sight. You feel the breeze stirring the hem of your robe, cool against your bruised knees as you kneel there in silence, your bowl cradled gently in your trembling hands. Let your chest soften with each slow inhale, the pain within easing like warm oil poured across aching joints. Allow the sounds around you to fade, the quiet scrape of sandals on stone, the soft cooing of doves perched high upon sunlit lintels, the distant bark of a street dog greeting the waking city beyond these walls. Feel only your breath now, rising and falling in calm, steady waves, carrying you deeper into stillness with each passing moment. Your spine relaxes, your shoulders release their tight hold, and your good eye drifts closed, lids resting like curtains drawn against the dawn. There is nothing left to perform. No words remain, only the quiet darkness within, vast and gentle, enfolding you like the deepest pool of sleep. Rest there, my friend. Drift down, down, down into its silent embrace. You are safe. You are unseen. You are nothing. And in being nothing, you are finally free.